So as usual, we are going to begin with recitation of the stanza to pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Marlon, can you hear me? Marlon, okay, thank you. Because some people, some people who listen from my Facebook, they say, the voice is so low they can't hear me. Okay, thank you. I think maybe because somebody, one of my sisters is also doing that on Facebook, and I think he has no microphone. That's why people from Facebook, they all complain about the sound not being heard properly. Today, our topic of discussion is paramita. Paramita. The word paramita is more familiar with the Mahayana Buddhism, the Chinese and the Tibetan, the Korean, the Japanese. The Theravada Buddhists, they are more familiar with the word parami. Parami, without ta, okay, just parami. And they mean the same thing. There is a remark by Bhikkhu Bodhi that in the early in early Buddhism, in the early Buddhist tradition, people focus more on the Eightfold Path. And a few hundred years after the Buddha, people started paying more attention to the 10 paramitas, okay, 10 or 6, whatever. Okay, people started paying attention to the paramitas. And with that, some people suggest that paramita is a kind of later practices. I myself, I have no opinion on that. I think we can understand the life of the Buddha in the last one and also in the previous one through paramitas. Then what does paramita mean? The easy translation, not exactly etymological, not exactly philological, but a loose translation is perfection. People say, okay, these practices, they make us a perfect human being. Well, we can debate about perfection or being perfect. I think if we go by the teaching that emphasizes on suffering or on dukkha, perfection is not the aim. And we don't need to be perfect to reduce suffering or to overcome suffering. But I can understand if some people use their imagination and would like to call this perfection. I don't think I have any quarrel with that. The other definition of paramita is a kind of going beyond, reaching beyond, or reaching the other shore. This side of the river and the other side of the river. So it's about reaching the other side of the river. Again, this is metaphorical, strictly metaphorical. Metaphorical in the sense that in the Buddhist understanding of the world or of philosophy or liberation, we don't really need to reach anywhere. We don't need to arrive anywhere. If we talk about arriving at wisdom, we are talking about arriving at a quality, acquiring a quality. At that quality, we don't really need to travel, somewhere, not on this earth and not beyond, not to heavens, not to anywhere. We need to focus on our own experiences, our interaction with the outside world, with other people. And for most people, the default setting is fear, is anxiety, is worry. These are our default position. So if we change our attitude, if we change our mindset, and to do that by developing compassion and wisdom, then liberation is here and now. We arrive at liberation, or we arrive at the quality of compassion, the quality of wisdom, at the point of our experience. So in that sense, we need to understand reaching beyond as strictly metaphorical. So where do we reach then? What is this side of the river? This shore, and what about what's the other shore? So if we for a moment revisit the wheel of the middle part, the wheel that has 8 factors, that has 8 spokes, Eight qualities, as I explained the other day, forming one path. And that path is symbolized by a wheel. A wheel. That wheel is in the first sermon, in the very first sermon, Dhammacakka, the wheel of the Dhamma. The reason that the Buddha uses the wheel as an example, as a metaphor, is to tell us, to let us know that, to inform us that his teaching is considered a vehicle, a transport. So elsewhere, the Buddha said that very clearly, that his teaching is like a raft, is like a boat, is like a ship, is like a plane, is like a car. Okay, once you have reached your destination, you have no reason to cling to this as me, as my. Okay, you have no reason to identify with this as yours. The purpose of the raft is to take you to the other shore. Once you have reached the other shore, you have no reason to be clinging to that raft or to be sitting in that raft forever. You need to let go. So the teaching of let go is even applied to the Dhamma. So the teaching itself. We need to let go of the teaching also. But only after we have reached the other shore. What's the other shore then? Okay. If you are really, really agitated, then you are at this side of the river, on this shore. Then if you apply mindfulness, if you apply right understanding, right intention, to speak in the language of the Eightfold Path, but to speak in the language of the Paramitas, if you apply patience, if you apply wisdom, which is similar to right understanding, if you apply loving kindness, which is similar to right intention, if you apply generosity, for example, if you apply some effort, then those paramitas, they will act, they will function as a raft, as a vehicle, as a plane, as a train, as any transport to take you to the other place, to the other shore. The other shore is where you no longer feel irritated. When we say where, when we say the space, again, this is strictly metaphorical. Here and now, sitting on your chair at home, sometimes you get irritated, maybe because you don't hear me well. Sometimes you get confused. But by the time you learn about my voice and you learn how to develop empathy towards my voice and my effort, then irritation will disappear. The disappearance of the irritation means you have arrived the other shore, at least temporarily. For the enlightened one, for the arhat, they will never feel anxious or irritated anymore, no matter what bothers them, no matter what is bothering them. Why? Because they have reached the other shore. So the other shore, etymologically, philologically, the word paramita means reaching beyond, going beyond. So that's what we talk about, the other shore. So this one we need to link to the purpose of the Dhamma, the purpose of the Buddhist teaching, which is to transport us from fear to no fear, from irritation to no irritation, from anger to loving kindness, from hatred to love. from ignorance to wisdom. So the idea of transporting, the idea of the practice being a transport, being an instrument, is in the very first sermon, and also here in the Paramita, which Bhikkhu Bodhi, we know each other well, and I have enormous respect for him. But I would like to say that the ideas are the same. The idea in the Dhammacakka, the wheel of Dhamma, and the ideas in the Paramitas, they are the same. They function as the same. Then the Eightfold Path, the path, is also meant to lead you to somewhere, to lead you out of where you are to somewhere. Out of where you are. What does it mean? Psychologically, where we are, there's emotionally is irritation, is agitation, disappointment, a mood swing, fear, as I mentioned earlier, all those things. This is where, as an unenlightened being, where we are. Where we are. If somebody says something we don't like, we either react or become judgmental. So in terms of psychological quality, we are just here on this shore. So what do we need? We need an instrument to reach the other shore. So those instruments are paramita, the 10 paramitas. In Theravada Buddhism, we talk about 10 paramitas. As I have given you in the outline, the first one is generosity. The second one is moral ethics, ethical behavior, ethical conduct, ethical attitude. The third one is letting go. Then the fourth one is wisdom. The fifth one, effort. Then comes being patient, being tolerant, being understanding. Understanding in the sense of being tolerant. Then being truthful. Then determination follows. Loving kindness, which represents compassion and sympathetic joys. And then the last one is balanced mind. I will just go through all of them briefly. Being generous is being a kind of sharing with other people, the practice of sharing. Sharing our time, sharing our knowledge, sharing our presence. If you develop mindful listening, compassionate listening to someone in distress, so that's sharing your presence, sharing your time. You can see if we interpret sharing in that way, generosity in that way. This in itself covers maybe all other paramitas. Because when you have the courage or the willingness to share, that means you already have loving kindness. And your emotion is balanced. So the last two, metta and upekkha. That also means you are determined to do something good rather than bad. That is determination. Being generous means you you take other people's welfare and well-being seriously into consideration. If you do that, you will not be doing any harm towards them. So, the first paramita, which is sharing or generosity, is closely related to the second one, ethical conduct. If we observe some form of restraint in our behavior, in our mind, in our speech, we're actually sharing some sense of responsibility, some sense of security with other fellow human beings. This is to say that generosity and moral practices, they are close to each other. They have a lot to do with each other. Letting go, of course, if you're able to share to a certain extent, you're willing to let go. To let go of your time, to let go of your wealth, to let go of your knowledge, what you know, letting go. Generosity is not self-centered, it's other-centered. It centers on other people. As a result, you also have not just letting go, you have wisdom in there. Because wisdom means reducing pain, reducing suffering. Wisdom is not about a university degree. Then people who share with other people, sharing is the first paramita, who share with other people, they obviously see life, the reality of life as it is. That is why, they make effort. It's their wisdom that sustains their generosity. And effort is already there when somebody shares with somebody else. So in sharing with other people, not just material things, but also many other forms of sharing. If we practice that, then, as I've just been trying to explain you, the other paramitas will come in order to share something with other people. You need to have positive thinking on them. If you have positive thinking on them, you're not going to be behaving in a way that is immoral, unethical towards them. In a family, if people have been trained and also are happy to share with one another, that family, you won't need many rules because the ethical conducts are taken care of by generosity, the attitude, the practice of generosity. Then number 5 is patience. Sometimes we translate this tolerance. That's, to accept other people as being different from us. To accept them. Acceptance is emphasized here. We're not trying to make them to become similar, to become the same as us. When you see people who are different from you, usually you have fear. But when we accept, we are actually saying that it's okay to have people of different opinions around us. Fear doesn't come to the fore. Some people say the word tolerance, to translate this one, Kandi or Shan, is tolerance, is a little bit negative. We are not sure, okay, if we're not sure whether or not we accept a person when we tolerate him. But to accept is a lot more mature than to be tolerant. So some people take the word tolerance in a rather negative way. So mindful of that, I'm just saying that tolerance is not the only translation of this Kandi. To be patient, to be perseverance, and to be resilient, I think those qualities, they also come in here. And then the next one is in Pali called Satya. Satya in Sanskrit, that is to be truthful and also to realize the truth. So if we translate it this way, you can see how wide-ranging this particular paramita is. Because somebody who is tuned to the reality of life, that person we want to share. That person we want to restrain his behaviors, his thought, his speech. So we can see how these 10 parameters are interrelated. And determination, being determined, is an important quality. Being determined in upholding goodness. Okay. In the distinction between good and bad. So determination shows our commitment to do good, to contribute in positive way. Determination. We are told, okay, traditionally that just before he became enlightened, the Buddha, he was so determined that he would never get up unless he found enlightenment, unless he found an answer to human suffering. He is said to have uttered, to have thought, to have made a decision that, okay, I'm not going to get up, even if it means that all my blood is going to get dry, all my bones are going to crack. No, he was really prepared to live with pain, to accept pain. So that's what we call in Pali Aditthana Paramita. in Sanskrit, adhisthana paramita. Determination. I mean, our mind firmly fixed on the mission to understand suffering and how to overcome it. The last two, the first one is loving kindness. As I mentioned at the beginning, this loving kindness represents compassion also, and also sympathetic joy, karuna and mudita. The reason is that in Pali Metta, in Sanskrit Maitri, which is loving kindness, how do we develop loving kindness towards other people, towards someone? Of course, when that person is in pain, we need to have loving kindness towards that person. To be precise and specific, we need to have compassion to that person. So compassion is to be used as an instrument in coping with pain in our life, in other people's life. Sympathetic joy, that is in Pali mudita, that quality is about rejoicing in the success of people, starting from our family members and our friends. If we don't have this sympathetic joy or mudita, there will be sibling rivalry. They will see each other as rival, as opponents. A lot of such things happens in the world, East and West. Competition among the family members. Maybe the parents were not quite sure about mindful parenting, and they ended up making their children compete with everyone. So their children are going to see anyone who is doing well as a threat. That is why loving kindness means to feel the pain of people when they are in trouble and to rejoice with them when they are doing well. This second part, we often forget. We forget to be happy. We forget to rejoice in the good thing in our life, in our family, and in the life of the nation, or even in the world. So, compassion and sympathetic joy, I would include them in the loving kindness, which is number 9, paramita. The last one, upekkha. Upeksha is in Pali upeksha. This is balanced emotion. Some people translate it in the earlier days. In the early days, some people translate it as indifference. I don't agree with that. Upekkha as one of the 4 qualities based on positive emotion, based on kindness and compassion. I don't think there is any place for being indifferent. Equanimity is another word people use. But the word equanimity, equanimous, is actually is almost not an everyday word. Not many people know exactly what it means. So, having considered the materials in the suttas and also in the Abhidhamma, two of the three collections of the Buddha, I've come to a conclusion that a better, a more understandable definition of upekkha is balanced emotion. Your emotion at that point is balanced between compassion and sympathetic joy. With compassion, when you work on pain, you can be derailed, quite easily, and get frustrated, upset, even anger and hatred. Hatred towards the people you think are causing injustice. So being balanced, on the one hand, compassion, not exactly compassion, is the barriers to compassion. On the other, it's about not being drawn or pulled away, getting carried away by the barriers towards rejoicing, joyful feeling. Because by focusing on something good that we have in our life, sometimes we become egoistic. But by focusing on other people's success, sometimes we get jealous. But sometimes we become depressed because we think we are not doing as well as they do. That kind of emotional balances that we can find in emotion development. Even if people don't make any effort to develop their emotion, people still go through these things, these emotions. So the last one, upekkha, is about balancing our emotion and emotional balance. In Mahayana Buddhism, not in Theravada Buddhism, people talk about 6 Paramitas, not 10. The first one is similar to Theravada Buddhism, which is generosity or sharing oneself with other people, our energy, our knowledge, our presence, resources. It's about sharing with them. The first one. The second one is also the same, which is morality, which is in Pali sila, in Sanskrit shila. That is some form of restraint that we need, that we have to do in order to live in harmony in human society, and in order not to harm them, not to cause harm to them. So some form of restraint. The third one is patient. Is similar to number 6 in the Theravada. We just use Theravadins use Pali, Khandi, and Mahayana. The Mahayanis use Sanskrit word Shanti. So that's patient. That can also mean tolerance, acceptance, endurance. Then we have Virya Parami. The word Virya, effort, is also part of Theravada Buddhist list of Paramita. That's number 5. And here is number 4. Then we have Dhyana. In Pali called Jhana. That's meditation. They talk about one-pointedness, concentration. And the last one is prajna, that is wisdom. wisdom. In Theravada, in the list of Theravada, wisdom is number 4, and here is number 6. And here, the list of 6 paramitas is not unique to Mahayana Buddhism. In some of the Theravada commentaries written by Acharya Dhammapala, you also have these 6. So you can see the dialogue going on between different schools of Buddhism. For people who take 6 paramitas, for them, something like being truthful is about being moral. So, Sajja Parami in Pali, Sajja Paramita is part of Sila Paramita, meaning being truthful is part of your precept. So, if you practice moral precepts, you are expected to be truthful. So, truth is not considered separately in the list of 6. And we can even say, if we understand not just being truthful in our speech, in our dealing with other people, but if we actually understand the truth, say the Four Noble Truth, for example, or the true realities of life, then that can mean wisdom. Panya in Theravada terminology, in Mahayana terminology is Prajna. And the last 2 in Theravada list, which is loving kindness, metta, and balance emotion, upekkha, and we can argue that they are part of meditation, dhyana. Actually, in Theravada Buddhism, upekkha, balance emotion, is considered a form of meditation. So this is to just to briefly explain that we shouldn't read too much the difference in number 6 and 10, because it's a different way of presentation. So before I conclude, what I want to say is that, for example, if you are thirsty, just imagine an example. If you are thirsty, then be mindful of that physical status at that time. How do you feel when you feel thirsty? So you are tuning to reality of the body. At the same time, we can also say you are learning. Okay, you are trying to know, to understand this true nature of the body. You're observing it. And to do that, you need some level of tolerance, forbearance. You need that. So Khanti Parami also comes in. But by observing our thirst a little bit, when we get to know that this is the nature of the body, the physical body, that acceptance, that insight into the reality of the physical body helps us see things as they are, which is wisdom. The fact that we are putting some effort to understand it is effort. Paramita, there's a virya paramita. If we do that often, the mind will become less and less attached to things. So the capacity to let go will certainly develop. By observing our thirst, before we take a sip of water, that gives us an opportunity to feel compassion, because everybody feels thirsty at some point during the day. So they need to take, some people take tea, some people take coffee, some people take water. For me, this is hot water. This is water, I take hot water. So when I drink that, if I become aware of, mindful of the reality of this physical body, I would be kind to myself. I wouldn't, dehydrate myself. So the exercise that I want you to do is just to look at the list and then trying to link them. In that way, you can reduce the list to 6, maybe just to 1. If we say wisdom, because compassion is part of that. If you have wisdom into the nature of reality, then you would be sharing, you would be restraining yourself. You will be able to let go. You will make effort. And you will be very committed to good things, to seeing good things, doing good things. So this is how paramita should be understood. We shouldn't understand them as a ladder. Okay, we climb one step each time. I don't think it works that way. By the way, many traditional scholars would consider it that way. But I think it's about integrating all the 10 factors. So the list is to remind us, checklist, what we can and should be doing. So if you are practicing one particular paramita, you are actually practicing more than one. It's a lot more. If you do this exercise by looking at the list of paramita, then that will help you to reach the other shore. When you get angry, you will be able to transport yourself from anger to no anger, from fear to no fear, from misunderstanding to understanding. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marlon. Any question?
Thank you, Bhante. I have a question here which reads, do you have any advice for if you're lonely because of being too shy to meet people?
Yes. I think if we are shy to meet people, if that's part of our nature. But I like to separate two things. Not meeting people and being lonely, I want to separate these two. Sometimes people are in a relationship, they meet people, they have a lot of friends, they still feel lonely. Meaning they can't connect with those people. There is no emotional connection. Then for people, then I like to take each problem separately. Let's talk about being shy to meet people. This reluctance, we can start from here. We have to start where we are. We need to recognize, okay, this is being reluctant to meet people. But sometimes we identify with this, we become judgmental about this reluctance. We like to say good or bad. If we say good or bad, we have some reason to blame other people. Sometimes we blame ourselves. Because being shy to meet people, this might come from our experiences in our childhood. Okay, if that's the case, we need to recognize this. That's the beginning, that's the starting point. And as I often say, among the English words that I have learned, one word that I really like is the benefit of doubt. So if you give yourself the benefit of doubt about being shy, it may be good, it may be not be good. Just give yourself some benefit of doubt. Then what we should be doing is to try to relate to people. You can watch television with the purpose of trying to relate to other people. You can watch any movie, any sitcom, any documentary. If we look for, we always have something to relate to. I watch documentaries from Africa, about animals. I watch them, and I have a lot to relate to them, such as fear, such as survival, and competing for limited resources, a lot of things. So if we can relate to that kind of thing, that will help us to come out of being shy. Of course, one quality that would do well is to use compassion. When we should be meeting people, if we are shy and we don't go out, now at that time we should be observing compassion towards ourselves, because we might miss the opportunity to be with other people, to serve other people, to do things for other people, to help and contribute in reducing the problem of the society. So in that sense, we can do compassion for ourselves. Then compassion means in Buddhism thinking about suffering of other people. When you read the news about infection, about the deaths caused by the coronavirus, if you go beyond the color of the skin, our skin, and if you go beyond nationality, every infection and death, they bring a lot of anxiety and sadness. So if we can relate to those people in that situation, we develop compassion. That compassion means we are connected with those people in pain. If you see a politician making a bad decision related to the coronavirus, you should try to connect with his limitations straight away. As human beings, we have all our limitations, and simply, okay, that someone has been elected to the highest office doesn't mean, the office takes away all his or her limitation. So we can relate to them that way as well. Even as I mentioned the other day, hunger, okay, if we get hungry, give ourselves 1 minute, observe that hunger, and then think about your neighbors, think about the people on the television, on Facebook, on Twitter, those people, everyone, they get hungry as well. So if you do this, you will have compassion as motivation, and this will solve you. They will solve the problem. One stone would kill two birds. That will solve the problem of loneliness, because by being able to relate to other people's pain, you will find some purpose in life, some purpose in helping other people, the weaker people, the less fortunate people. But if you're going to start with loneliness, again, if we want to use mindfulness, we need to identify that loneliness and then recognize it as it is. Give yourself some benefit of doubt. Just observe how it feels to feel lonely. When you feel lonely, you feel your mood is low, your mind turns towards negativity. You have many good things in your life, you don't see them anymore in that moment. Loneliness. Loneliness is also about rejecting where we are, what we are doing, what we are eating, what we are drinking. It's about rejecting the present moment. Loneliness. So one stone killing two birds means, mindful compassion will help you solve the problem of loneliness, and also feeling shy to meet people. More questions?
Thank you, Bhante. I have someone here who writes, they're very new to Buddhism, only 4 weeks, and can you recommend how many times per week they should try doing meditation? And they say that they're finding the meditation classes online quite challenging.
If you are new to Buddhism and Buddhist meditation, just do about 24 hours a day, because you need to catch up. I'm just joking, okay? How much you should do? I'm referring you to scientific research. You can listen to some of the talks on TEDx talk, mindfulness, or some people just say, okay, 3 minutes a day. Other scientists, they talk about like Siddhartha's brain. If you accumulate minutes, say if you do 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, or maybe 3 minutes, observe your breathing and then trying to identify your emotion, your thought, without judging, without being judgmental towards them. Just name them. Okay, wow, this is an automatic thought. This is wandering mind. Oh, I'm judging again. I'm saying that wandering mind is not good. or you discover the pattern of your reaction. So what I'm talking is about quality. Okay, quality. Doesn't matter how long you sit. How long you matter is the quality. With that quality, if you accumulate altogether 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. If 10 minutes a day, okay, you can see 6 days is 1 hour. Okay, 6 days is 1 hour. So that's about a few days. When you accumulate 8 hours, your brain will start changing. The negativity biased brain, the brain that sees only negative things in life, will start shifting. You will start noticing many good things around you in your life, in the people you know. So some people say 8 hours. Some people say this because they have different reasons, 30 hours. But I think we can afford it, even 30 hours. So how you're going to accumulate? I have given all sorts of meditation instruction. I have done 3 minutes, I have done 5 minutes, I have done 6 minutes, 8 minutes for busy people. But for them, we need to make sure that they are aware of their thoughts, their emotion too. And in order to be aware of them, they need to focus on breathing a little bit. But don't expect them to stay with breathing all the time. This is the meditation we are going to be talking about tomorrow. But if you are new, sometimes it's helpful to have an instruction being played and meditate with that. Just follow that instruction. Sometimes it helps. It's something like meditating with other people. But start with something simple. Something simple. You can do 3 minutes, you can do 5 minutes. The quality is what matters. So the neurologists, as I have just referred to, some of them says 8 hours we start changing your brain. But 30 hours, 30 hours, will certainly do you a lot of good. I think maybe we can have one more question if you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone asks, what is wisdom and how do we gain it? Is it an attitude, a state of mind, a kind of knowledge, or something else?
It's everything you mentioned. But the function, instead of defining wisdom that way, I like to talk about the function of wisdom. The function of wisdom is understanding the problem and solving it. That's the function of wisdom. If you have a lot of knowledge, but that knowledge doesn't help you to understand the problem, then your knowledge is actually a barrier. Because your knowledge is just an information, not wisdom. Information is not wisdom. That is why in the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha starts straight away with problem, talking about problem of life. If we are interested in problem and in solving it, forget about wisdom. See? then earlier I said, it's everything that you mentioned. Attitude, for example. The attitude. The attitude, what attitude? The attitude that problem needs to be faced head on. It needs to be studied, investigated, looked at closely. So this is an attitude. It's also about relying on ourselves. Another attitude. To go back to the main Buddhist central thinking, when we talk about wisdom, we are not talking about wisdom on its own. We are talking about many factors giving rise to wisdom, but wisdom in that moment, for that particular situation, wisdom being the prominent factor, perhaps the leading factor. The leading factor. So we make decision every day, but a decision that solve problem, big or small, that's wisdom. Of course, the highest wisdom in Buddhism is the wisdom of non-self. What do we mean by non-self? We mean we understand our experience as a common humanity. Because when we tend to personalize and look at our experience as being unique, that's the basis of loneliness. We disconnect ourselves from other people. We think what we are going through is unique to us. No one else experiences or knows this. So as a result, we feel very shy to share our experience with other people. To come back to the main point, the function of wisdom. The function of wisdom is about reducing suffering, reducing problem. And if someone behaves in that way, that person has wisdom. A person may look very wise, but if his approach, his opinion, his action doesn't contribute to reducing pain and problem that we face in day-to-day life, that's not wisdom. I hope this gives you something. So if you don't mind, Marlon, once again I like to rest my voice. So if you don't mind, we can stop here.
Of course. Thank you very much, Bhante.
Thank you to all of you.